following podcast contains spoilers and words like and We watch the thing. We watch the thing. Hello everybody and welcome back to We Watched a Thing. I'm back. That's right, baby. I'm here with you. I know that I took last week off, but here I am in your ear holes again, and I'm sure you're super happy. As alluded to previously, some small changes to the show. One of those changes I'd like to introduce you to right now. Brand new, newly minted co-host of the show, Mr. David Powell. How you doing, mate?
I am good, my friend, and good to have you back.
How's it feel to be here?
It feels wonderful. It's warm and fuzzy.
I'm excited for this. We've got some cool plans in the work, cool things we're going to do, and
lots of exciting things.
Still be a few guest hosts every now and then, but I think we make a good team.
We are a dynamic duo.
Well, let's get straight into it then. This week, we're going to be talking about Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, which is a 2022 American mystery film written and directed by Rian Johnson and produced by he and Ram Bergman. It's the sequel, of course, to Knives Out from 2019, with Daniel Craig reprising his role. Also starring, of course, Edward Norton, Janelle Monáe, Kathryn Hahn, Leslie Odom Jr., Jessica Henwick, Madelyn Cline, Kate Hudson, and Dave Bautista. And what is it about, Dave?
Much as with the first Knives Out, we've got an Agatha Christie homage, essentially.
Well, yeah.
It's very strong. What was it? I think it's called And Then There Were None, if my Agatha Christie memory serves me correctly. Whole bunch of disparate people on an island where they can't get away. There's a murder. It needs to be solved. But being Rian Johnson, there's about 10 other layers and twists in there to keep you off guard. So unlike an Agatha Christie film where these days everyone knows what's going to happen, in this case, I defy anyone to know what's going to happen.
So correct me if I'm wrong. From memory, you are a Johnson fan. In fact, you're on the side of the fence with me that liked The Last Jedi, yeah?
It is the third best of the 9 core Star Wars films after Empire and New Hope.
Yep, I feel the exact same way.
Yeah, I have not disliked anything he has done. I've seen every film he's done, and obviously he's also responsible for some of the very best of Breaking Bad.
Is he really? I've never been a Breaking Bad watcher. I didn't know that he was involved with that.
He only directed 2 or 3 episodes, I think. I haven't checked it, so I hope this is correct. I believe he directed what is widely considered to be the best episode of Breaking Bad, and one of the best episodes of TV ever, Ozymandias.
There you go.
Please don't destroy me online if I fuck that up, but I think that's the case.
That's right. You can at David Powell.
Yes, by all means. Cancel me.
So I'm guessing that you, like much the rest of the world, were a fan of the first Knives Out then.
Yeah, very much so. I'm a big whodunit lover. Ever since I was a kid, my mum was a big Agatha Christie and just in general mystery lover. Yeah, that old school mystery with no violence but lots of intrigue. Agatha Christie, P.D. James, all that sort of stuff.
Did you happen to get to see how they run earlier in the year?
I've watched about 20 minutes of it.
Yeah.
I don't want to make a call on it because I think I was in the wrong mood, but
it's not a great film. I didn't do it on the show, but
I tuned out
do it over on
because I was tired and I felt like I was just going to fall asleep. So I haven't gone back to it. So yeah, it didn't wow me.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get straight into Knives Out 2 Glass Onion then. Obviously, it's dropping on Netflix Christmas Eve. Big Netflix acquisition with Rian Johnson. Yeah. But we were lucky enough to get to some of the advanced screenings that are showing at the cinema this week. I'm going to go straight out there and say it. Here it is. Here's my kind of one-up summary. I feel like waiting for Netflix for this one is fine. I don't know if this is going to be a bit of a disagreement here. I liked this movie, but I didn't love it.
Depends on how good your TV is, I guess. I think it's a very nice-looking film, so I certainly didn't resent the dropping the money at Gold Class to see it in comfort. But, yeah, I mean, let's face it, for the sake of a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Had we not been recording, I probably would have saved my money and waited.
I feel like this is maybe a me problem. Perhaps my expectations were too high because, much like you, I am a big fan of Rian Johnson. I was a big fan of the first film, and I was really intrigued to see how this was going to work because for me, what made Knives Out work so well was that ensemble cast. And obviously here, the only returning player is Daniel Craig, and it's a whole new mystery. And there is that question around how is that going to work? And I think for me, the answer is it works fine, but this is not a scratch on that first film for me.
I'm going to shock you here. I reckon this is better.
Oh, wow. Wow. All right.
I no slight on the first one, but where I found the improvement, the first one is very much a Agatha Christie style whodunit.
Yeah,
he's not changing the formula. It's literally, you could swap out Benoit Blanc and put in Poirot, and it wouldn't feel out of place.
Yeah.
With this one, I feel like he's subverted the genre a bit. He's taken a lot of the things you would expect, and he's flipped them. A lot of the stuff that you would expect to happen doesn't happen. Things happen in a different way. Yeah. I found it a lot less predictable.
Wow.
The first Knives Out, yes, there were 2 or 3 times during the movie where I was going, it's this.
Yeah,
but certainly what happens in that film was one of the things I thought might be the case.
Yeah.
This time around, there was nothing was what I thought it would be.
Wow.
And there's a couple of points, and I guess I won't sort of talk spoilers yet. We might sort of draw a line in the sand at some point where people can tune out because it is such a new film. But there is a point in the film where I was sort of going, okay, well, this is just like the first one. It's pretty good. I'm enjoying all of these people. And then it's like he's drawn a line in the sand and go, and now I'm going to really fuck with you and just everything you thought was the case, I'm going to change.
Yeah.
And that I really liked.
See, maybe that was my issue with it. What I loved about the first one was those really slight subversions and just the fun that was had with the characterizations. You know, like I loved that gimmick, and it feels like a gimmick when you say it out loud, that gimmick that Ana de Armas vomits when she lies. Like, I thought that was really clever and something really fun to play with. And for me, I felt this movie was just missing a little bit of that fun. Like, to me, this felt much more like a whodunit and less like a whodunit comedy, I guess, is the thing
really?
for me. Yeah, I didn't laugh as many times.
Much funnier.
Right. Well, let's get straight into it then. Obviously, the big difference is, as I said, complete cast redo apart from Daniel Craig. So let's talk cast to start with. How did you feel about the players in this film? Obviously, I don't think this is anywhere near as big a cast as the first film. You don't have your Jamie Lee Curtises and your Chris Evanses.
I don't know. I think if you, and I haven't counted, but I think if you add up the number of name actors, this has probably got more. It's just that a lot of them have very small cameos.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of them...
It's like everyone wanted to be part of the new Knives Out. And you've got Ethan Hawke and Hugh Grant and Natasha Lyonne Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Actually, that's true. The cameos in this
fucking Stephen Sondheim has a cameo.
That's true. The cameos are off the chain, and I expected none of them. When Hugh Grant pops up for a maximum of 30 seconds in this film...
Am I reading it into this as Benoit Blanc's live-in... life companion?
I know. It was, and it's literally like 30 seconds or something, and it is insane. When he pops up, I was like, "Wow, that is strange," and I love it because
I really hope in Knives Out 3, Hugh Grant is back, and they're this middle-aged gay couple.
Yes, and he's like helping him with his investigation. That would be perfect.
Or just keeping him in tracks. Like when you've got him refusing to get out of the bath during lockdown because he's bored. And you've just got Hugh Grant's voice off camera going, a box has arrived. Come take your mail.
Yeah. No, well, that's true. The cameos are insane. But I think the core cast for me, like, arguably the biggest name in the film is probably Ed Norton. And then Dave Bautista, due to his MCU fame, is pretty big. But after that, they're all kind of quite small players. Like, Kate Hudson obviously was a name, but I can't think of the last thing I saw her in.
And to be honest, a lot of these, a lot of the core cast are people that I often find annoying.
Well,
Kate Hudson, I can take or leave. It really depends on the project.
Yes.
Kathryn Hahn's the same. If she's in the right place, I love her, but she can really great. Dave Bautista, I like him when he's sort of in something that suits him. But,
Yep.
let's face it, he's Dave Bautista.
Yeah, always, yeah.
And all three of them I thought were perfectly cast, and it may have been the case, but it's like the characters were written for them. I thought they nailed it.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Let me be clear, I don't think there's a bad performance in this film. For me, it feels like the cast are having less fun with it. And maybe it was me, maybe it was the day I saw it on. I'm just recovering from COVID. But I just didn't have as much fun with this film as I really wanted to after the first one, which for me was one of the best cinema experiences I can remember in the last 5 years. I just remember everyone in the cinema. Yeah, I just remember everyone in the cinema just losing their minds at the hilarity of Knives Out. And it was an experience that just was not matched this time.
I need to go back and watch it again, though. I haven't watched it since it came out. And I remember loving it. I didn't have a bad thing to say about it, but I don't remember sort of being wowed the way you obviously were. So I might need to revisit it, having seen this, and just compare again with it fresh in my mind.
Let me ask you a question. You kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier with the gimmick with Blanc in the bathtub during lockdown and stuff and struggling with that. Where are you on COVID and lockdown being featured in films? Because we are at that really early point right now where it's funny, even though it was a huge part of our lives, it almost feels kind of gimmicky to allude to it in film. And it almost takes you out of the realism of it, even though it shouldn't. It's a really bizarre thing.
I think it was, and I'm sort of putting myself in Rian Johnson's shoes, given when they were making this. Obviously, they want to be seen to be responsible outside of the story.
Yeah.
So I thought they sort of cleverly addressed the time and place when it was made, but then moved on with
I agree.
Whatever weird magical fucking vaccine even gave them all.
Yeah, I agree. I actually like that it wasn't a character in the film, but it was addressed. I actually really liked that. This is the first time I've seen it come up in a film where it didn't give me that weird gimmicky feeling. Yeah, I thought it was executed really well, actually.
And the fact that they just moved on and it didn't, I mean, obviously it would have been a very different experience if the entire cast were wearing masks throughout the entire film.
Yeah, but they were at first, which actually it did throw me off, I have to say.
I was surprised. But just in general terms, most of the time it does feel gimmicky. There was someone made a lockdown movie while everyone was in lockdown called something like Locked Down.
Oh, yes, I remember.
I think it was Anne
Hathaway?
And what's his name from Tenet?
Yeah, I remember seeing the trailer
almost
for
everyone
that
else
appeared
over Zoom calls and things. That's obviously going to be films like that are a snapshot in time that you can't avoid because of how they were made. But I did like the fact that this sort of addressed it very briefly, and then everything just got on with its business.
Yeah.
What do you think of the evolution of Benoit Blanc as a character? Obviously, he's in the first one, and I am casting my mind back a couple of years now, as I said, but he spent a lot of the film quietly sitting in the corner, not saying anything.
Yeah.
And being mysterious.
Yes.
And felt very much to me like he was Rian Johnson's version of Poirot.
Yeah.
He's mysterious, he's aloof, he's sort of asexual, although less so in this one, as we mentioned. He's got an outrageous accent.
Yes,
But I felt like he didn't have a huge amount of personality in the first one. Most of the personality came from everyone else. And he was just this kind of accented, clever guy in the middle.
That's true. I loved the kind of twist here being that he's so tired from lockdown of not being able to solve something. That scene where he just ruins the murder mystery party.
The thing that you think the movie's about. And 2 seconds in goes, blah.
That was absolutely brilliant. That was fantastic. And you're right, because we've seen him be that kind of aloof, mysterious character. He has no mystery to us anymore.
And the thing I loved, or one of the things about how they sort of expanded on his personality in this one, was for that first portion, he felt like a buffoon. To an extent. And it didn't feel out of place because you'd had that sort of bathtub setup scene where you kind of expected him to be, oh God, I'm getting it, and to be in awe of these celebrity disruptors, and then when it did sort of flip, I thought that I loved it, absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I thought that was very, very clever, and I loved him in this film. And I think for me, that is the big difference between Knives Out 1 and Knives Out 2. And it sounds like perhaps we had a different reading of the film. But for me, in the first film, like you said, he is kind of much quieter and not really bringing the comedy. That's brought by the entire rest of the cast. Whereas I think in this film, it felt more the other way round. And so I think that's why it felt smaller and less grand and less funny to me, is because most of the comedy I felt is coming from Blanc and not from the rest of the cast. The rest of the cast, I think, were played. Yeah, I think the rest of the cast were played much more straight. I think there were a few really funny moments. The running gag with Kate Hudson's tweets, I found really funny. Every time it was mentioned that she'd said something racially insensitive, and she was like, "I didn't know that word was," and they were like, "Jewy."
Did you think sweatshops were where they made sweatpants?
Yeah, like that gag to me was very funny. But see, like Leslie Odom Jr.'s character, who, like, I love him. Hamilton, I think, is brilliant, and his Aaron Burr was fantastic. And I felt like he didn't really have much to do in this role at all. Like, his character was...
He and Kathryn Hahn certainly were...
Kathryn Hahn, another one.
Not given as much time to shine as Bautista.
Kathryn Hahn is a hilarious actress when she's given the right role. And I kind of felt like she wasn't... She didn't really have much to do here. And you think back to the first one, where... The first one, what I loved about it was... Almost that entire movie was made up of those interrogation scenes, and I loved the way that every time he interrogated a different person, you saw the same events portrayed differently. That's just a kind of gimmick that I love. You know, like there's a classic X-Files episode called Bad Blood where Mulder and Scully are telling the same story.
One of the two episodes of that show that are ingrained in my memory.
It's absolutely hilarious.
That and Tombs.
Oh yes,
when you see Mulder's version of
and the way that
he's just that
Luke Wilson's character just changes so dramatically from this handsome, suave kind of guy to this complete hick. It's just a device that I really enjoy, and for me, this film I think was lacking a little bit. And I think here we are, 19 minutes into recording. Let's step into spoilers for a second. Yeah. The big twist for this film happens. I mean, I don't even know how far it is.
I think it's actually beyond halfway.
It felt like
the shooting. You mean?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Where we
effectively go
flashback.
Back and then see the entire story again from that one character's perspective. And for me, that just didn't work because it felt like we were stopping the action and going back, and it didn't have that same joyfulness to the filmmaking that the first film had when we were going back and seeing subsequent scenes. It felt more like the end of a typical Agatha Christie novel where we were re-seeing everything and, you know, learning new information, but without the fun of it.
And I think this is why I liked it more than the first one, whereas you're the other way around. Is the first one, yes, I liked, and it's like Rian Johnson's gone, okay, well, with the first one of the tropes of this genre is multiple viewpoints, seeing the same thing, you know, Clint Eastwood in the light of fire sort of thing.
Yeah.
And as you progress through all the different versions, you've got to try and pick out which is the truth and which is not.
Yeah.
And this time around, he's sort of gone a different trope, which is seeing all of these events and then seeing them from another viewpoint and going, oh my God, I didn't realize what that meant. I didn't realize what that meant. I didn't.
Yes.
And it's kind of another sort of style of whodunit.
Yeah.
Which I really loved. As soon as we hit that point of the shooting and you flash back and realise that everything you've seen so far, you've seen kind of a skewed version of reality.
From the wrong perspective.
You've seen the same thing as all of the other characters.
Yeah.
And then you realise, no, much like everyone else, I've been taken in by Blanc's genius.
Yeah.
But now I'm on the other side of the fence and I'm seeing from his point of view for the second half of the film.
Yeah.
And I thought that was phenomenal. I actually think this is Johnson's best writing since Brothers Blood.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
Everything. Once I've we sort of got to the second half and you start seeing so many of those scenes again.
Yeah.
And he doesn't change anything in them. He's just using a different camera.
Yeah.
But you see so much more and see everything so differently.
Yeah.
Just from knowing what you know about Janelle Monáe's character and her relationship with Blanc. Everything changes. And I thought that was genius.
Yeah. I will say it has me very, very curious to see what happens next, because obviously this next Netflix acquisition was part of a franchise which Netflix have been wanting to launch for years. I've spoken about this with Dan from Netflix and Swill, that they've been trying forever to launch a franchise, and here they've just gone and bought one from someone who had a previous film. They've gone, yep, this is our franchise now.
And knowing that Johnson wanted to do it to be a sort of kick-off of something.
So I'm very curious to see what happens next, because I guess that's one thing that I did enjoy about the sequel is how different it is to the first one. Like you say, it's playing with the same genre, but it takes a completely different approach to it and a completely different number of tropes from that genre. So I'm really curious to see where he goes next and where the cast goes, because for me, that's where the real fun in this film series is. It's like Clue, but with all of Hollywood at your disposal.
So speaking of cameos, and by God, we haven't even touched on them all, but Serena Williams. There's the sort of live stream trainer just standing there. And presumably, given when they made this, that was why he was able. I mean, obviously, the first one was a huge hit and people wanted to be on board. It probably wasn't hard to assemble a cast, but a lot of people stuck at home not being able to do anything. I'm sure it didn't take much to get Natasha Lyonne and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and that to go, so I'll do 5 minutes on a Zoom call.
It's the same thing with the audition scene in Clerks 3, I'm sure, where he was able to amass this huge number of cameos.
Did you? I only know this because of IMDb. I didn't. This is the only way you could know. But you know the hourly dong, where you've got the voice going dong once on the hour. Joseph Gordon-Levitt did that.
You're kidding? That's crazy. That stuff like that makes me laugh so hard. That's like the story about when South Park first started. And they were getting their door was being knocked on constantly with people wanting cameos. So they made Jerry Seinfeld play a turkey and Mel Gibson play a dog.
George Clooney was the gay dog. Early on, because he loved it and wanted to support them, and
and the only celebrity for like the first 4 seasons they let do an actual voice was Natasha Henstridge from Species, and they didn't even give her a proper credit. The credit in the title says the hot chick from Species. I love that. Oh man,
that's outstanding.
Classic. So, all in all, it sounds like you very much enjoyed this film. How are you scoring Glass Onion out of 10?
I think I'm an 8.
Well, yeah. Wow.
I think I'm from memory on Letterboxd. I've got this and Knives Out both as 4s. But as I said, I did have more fun with this. So yeah, definitely an 8. It might even go up to an 8.5 or 9 on a rewatch.
Yep. Wow.
It'd be interesting to see. Watching it again, I think it's one of those ones. The first half of the film, you'll get more out of. There'll be things that you didn't pick up first time round, obviously, because you don't know. And I think Johnson's enough of a craftsman that he won't have missed anything.
Yeah,
when he's
you're much more on the Topher side of the fence than I am, where you are a harsher critic and you're a bigger fan of kind of real cinema, I guess. So, I mean, an 8 is a high score. I'm a 7 on this. I was a 9 for Knives Out and a 7 for this.
Big disparity.
I mean, I probably need to rewatch both, in fairness, because as I said, cinema is one of those really objective things, and as with any art, it is so subjective that the mood you're in at the time can really affect
such
everything.
a difference.
So having just been recovered from COVID and feeling lethargic and stuff, I mean, I'm sure that some of that could have played into the fun that I was feeling in the cinema. So it definitely needs a rewatch.
But I must admit, I was in a gold class seat. I had my sliders and chips, and I had my beer, and it's a long time since I've seen Edward Norton in a film in a cinema, and I'm a big Ed Norton fan, even though, we all know he's a bit of a douche in real life, but I think he's an incredible actor.
I mean, some of the biggest
and I think
douches
he's amazing in this. So, everything was checking boxes for me.
I mean, that's true. Like, we haven't even... I was so busy talking about the rest of the cast, I really didn't give Norton his dues. But you're right, he is fantastic in this role. He is, for me, the standout of this film. I like him even more than Daniel Craig in this role. I think he's fantastic.
Yeah. One thing, what did you make of random stoner guy on the island? I can't even remember what his name was.
Who just kept popping up and being like, I'm not here. That was one of the running gags. I kept expecting
there to be some reveal that he was the real Miles and Ed Norton was a hired actor, even though that would have made zero sense.
Yeah. No,
I loved him. I thought he was great, and I loved that you end up with him and Benoit Blanc just sitting back smoking, watching the fallout of everything.
You're right. That was one of the running gags that I found very funny, was that just him keep popping up.
I'm not here.
I'm not here. I'm not here. Don't worry about it. I'm not here. And at random times too, like something very dramatic would be happening and then the camera would pull out and he'd be standing there getting a bag of chips or something. I'm not here. That was very funny. Well, we got to a double feature this week, mate, because we also got to check out The Menu, which I was really looking forward to. I know that you are probably the world's biggest Anya Taylor-Joy fan.
I was going to say, you may not know this about me.
Oh, I know this about you. I know that you were a big fan of Anya Taylor-Joy. I know that you loved Last Night in Soho. Yes, you're wearing a Last Night in Soho shirt right now, which I liked but was very disappointed in.
It's grown on me. I've watched that probably 4 times now because I got it on 4K, and I've...
dropping the 4K card. Who are you, Paul from The Countdown? Well, let's talk The Menu, because I was really excited for this. The Menu is an American black comedy horror film directed by Mark Mylod, written by Seth, Reiss and Will Tracy, and produced by Adam McKay, Betsy, Koch and Will Ferrell. It stars Ralph Fiennes, Anya Taylor-Joy, Nicholas Hoult, Chau, Janet McTeer, Reed Birney, Judith Light and John Leguizamo. And what is it about, mate?
It's about some people having dinner.
Yeah.
It's a group of people head out to a very, very uber exclusive 3 Michelin star style restaurant on an island.
Yep.
Where Chef Slovic, Ralph Fiennes, is the sort of owner-operator, and they all think they're there for the meal of their lives, but as the evening progresses, things take a turn.
Yeah. Did you know much about this film before going into it? Because even the trailer doesn't give too much.
Yeah, I've avoided everything about this. I saw an interview with, I think it was Nicholas Hoult, saying, look, I would recommend that you go in completely cold. So that's what I did. And I'm glad I did.
I famously don't watch trailers, but I did happen to see this one at the cinemas one day.
Oh, did you hate that?
I know. And I mean, the good thing is that that's how it got on my radar, because I was like, wow, that looks like something I want to watch. But yeah, I wish that I had gone in colder, and this is the reason I don't watch trailers. But I have to say, at least the trailer for this didn't even really give much away at all.
You kind of know going in by the genre that it's not just going to be people having dinner. Something's going to happen.
Exactly. And that's virtually all the trailer gave away. The trailer very much heavily played up the scene where he lets the men try and escape. And so, if anything, I thought this film was maybe going to be more in that direction. I thought we were maybe in for a kind of strange adaptation of The Most Dangerous Game.
I was going to say, it feels like
that's where my head was kind of going in. And I'm just going to say this up front. I fucking loved this film. Like, spoilers for a future episode. I've already got Sean Carney lined up for our top 5 films of the year, and I know that this is getting a mention because...
It certainly would be in mine at this point in time anyway. I loved it.
Yes.
Even leaving aside the bias that I went in with, i.e., if it's got Anya in it, it's going to be great because she's not done it in her entire career. She's not had a dud performance.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is right up my alley. Slightly twisted, slightly weird, slightly violent, slightly gory.
Yep.
Very well filmed
and incredibly written. So much fun. The writing is just genius. And for me, this is an ensemble cast at its best. Like, yes, Anya Taylor-Joy and Ralph Fiennes have more to do, but every single one of these players...
Adam McTeer, Leguizamo doing his Steven Seagal.
He is pitch perfect as Steven Seagal.
Bloody Judith Light, who I haven't seen since she was, opposite Tony Danza.
It took me a while to recognise her. That's the thing. It's not... Wow. This isn't a huge name cast by any stretch. I mean, they're all kind of big players in
characters
their own right,
that you've seen here and there.
But my God, this was just so cleverly put together from start to finish. And it's funny, it both is and isn't one of those films where you don't know what's going to happen next, because you kind of do, but not always in the way that things actually play out.
Yeah, you kind of, obviously you know that things are going to go sideways and there's going to be some darker things happening. Yeah. But the reasons for it, why Slovik's doing what he's doing, who Anya Taylor-Joy's character is, that you certainly don't see up front. Obviously, the very ending, certainly didn't see coming, and I thought it was amazing. I loved it.
It's very Ari Aster would watch this movie and be like, he'd be taking notes.
I literally, I think I deliberately didn't put much of a review on Letterboxd until after we'd recorded. But I think the one thing I did write in there was an ending that Ari Aster would be proud of.
I think you're exactly right. Like it was very reminiscent of the ending of Midsommar, which is another film which I really loved, which kind of played with those boundaries between horror and comedy in a way that's not... Like, you think of a horror comedy film, and you almost immediately go to something like Shaun of the Dead, which is very much, I think, more in the comedy realm.
Absolutely. Whereas it's a comedy. I think of it almost as a comedy. There's no point in that I find scary or anything.
I do as well.
It's a comedy in the horror genre.
Yes, yeah. Whereas
as opposed to something like Cabin in the Woods, which does have similar to this, but less so.
Yeah.
Funny bits interspersed with horror bits. And the horror bits are just horror bits, and the comedy bits are just comedy
exactly.
bits.
This is the best example I can point to of a true horror comedy where the comedy is hilarious and the horror is gory and tense.
Yeah.
And at no point does this movie feel silly. Like, never does it feel silly. This plays like a straight drama. And yet you are laughing probably more than you have in most straight comedies.
Well, because it's almost a comedy of... A lot of it I've found... It's like a comedy of manners.
Yes, and like the characters. The characters are
the interactions
funny.
Between Nicholas Hoult and Anya Taylor-Joy's character, where he's just being such a pompous twat about the
way
food.
He keeps pulling out his phone.
And that's all hilarious.
Yeah.
But then when you do get the horrific bits... There's nothing funny about them.
Yeah.
Maybe if you're me or Paul Brazola or someone, you're laughing because you just find that shit funny. But normal humans would be watching the horrific bits and go, because it's all really dark shit and it's violent and
the very first death in this film, which you actually do not see coming, I don't think, which is the sous chef who has come up. He's invented a meal called the mess.
Why do you see that coming?
And when it happens,
that's like cold water.
It feels so brutal. Even though, arguably, there have been much more graphic deaths in film over the year. Like, there's nothing particularly gory about that. Like, it's a bullet through the back of the head.
Shocking, though.
But it is so... And then you are immediately hit by the comedy when it... I love the cuts to the text of the menu when it comes up with, the best one in the whole thing is when Nicholas Hoult's character is forced to cook, which is just an absolutely hilarious scene. Like, what I love about the comedy in this film is that it's almost Seinfeld-esque. Like, this is a really observational comedy thing. Like, it's like somebody sat at a fancy restaurant and looked around and observed the people who were sitting there and just made notes.
The satire of this is just biting.
Oh,
especially Janet McTeer and what's his name, Paul Edelstein's characters. Are just perfect.
Yeah.
Like, she is 80% of the food critics that you read in the paper or see on TV or anything.
Yes, yeah.
And he is perfect as the sycophantic one that props her up and makes her continues to pump up her ego.
Yeah, it's
just amazing.
Genius. Yeah, it's so funny. But yeah, when Nicholas Hoult, who is the kind of foodie archetype who's, always Instagramming food, when he's forced to cook for this chef, and then it comes up with the menu, which is Tyler's bullshit. And you know that this is bad. You know that this is not good for this character, and that he is doing something horrific while this title card is coming up on screen, and yet you cannot help but laugh out loud because it is so funny.
Not only has he been such a pompous wanker throughout the entire thing, but he's increasingly awful to his date, Marco.
Oh, yes. And the reveal around that I thought was genius as well.
Yeah. And apparently, where she slaps him, that was unscripted.
Yeah, right.
But Anya Taylor-Joy went to Mark Mylod and said, "I really feel like my character would hit him here." As a woman, I'm telling you that a woman in this situation would fucking hit him. And he apparently said, I'm not a woman. I'm you would know better than me. And so she did, and apparently Hoult was quite taken aback.
Oh, that's great. That's so good. Oh, that's genius. Let me ask you this then. Because obviously the ultimate fate for these characters, all of them, both, the diners and the servers, is a horrific outcome.
Yes.
Did you feel bad for these characters at any point? Like, obviously, Anya Taylor-Joy from the beginning is supposed to be your kind of sympathetic window to this kind of nightmare of a night.
And we'll get to her fate because I think that there's a bit to touch on there.
Yeah.
I think the only one that I felt sorry for was, I can't remember her name now, Leguizamo's kind of
he's
who was trying to quit, who seemingly everyone else is kind of, hard to say they deserve their fate, but
but they're not great people.
Her greatest crime seems to be not having quit earlier.
Yeah, I thought the same thing because it's really funny. Fiennes' character seems very set on, like these people deserve punishment.
He's meting out punishment for all the slights that have made
exactly, and he's very upset that Anya Taylor-Joy is even there from the beginning because she took somebody else's place and she should be there.
An outsider, she doesn't belong.
And I was a little bit the same as you. I was like, well, Jesus, when the reveal for Leguizamo's punishment is kind of given that it was just because he was in this bad movie that wasted Fiennes' time. That in itself was just fucking hysterical. But then that makes you feel extra bad for his poor assistant. And they try and give you a bit of kind of later on when she's like, I've been stealing money from you. And I think you're meant to...
So what? He's a douchebag. Good, steal his money.
Exactly. Jesus, I worked at a video shop for years. I would... no, I'm not going to finish that sentence. Yeah, I agree. I felt a little bit bad
everyone
for her
else,
character.
all of the hedge funny guys that worked for the billionaire.
Oh, they were douchebags.
Get rid of them.
Yeah.
Janet McTeer, yes, good.
Yeah.
What was the Judith Light and her husband? I can't remember what. Oh, they were the ones that came
customers.
Every week for years and years, but couldn't remember a single dish.
Couldn't even remember a dish. Yeah.
Yep. Fair enough. Yep. But yeah, no. So Margot kind of earns her freedom, I guess.
Yeah.
By standing up to Chef and saying, you no longer cook for the joy of it. You're as pretentious as everyone else.
Yep.
Make me a hamburger. And he does. And she likes it and says that's the first thing you've made with love or whatever. And kind of earns her reprieve and gets to leave. Or does she? What did you think of?
Thank you. So you might have had the same thought I did. So firstly, let me say that the cheeseburger cooking scene is one of the most orgasmic scenes I've ever seen put in cinema. And we were intending, my wife and I saw this at like an 11 a.m. session or something. And we were intending to just come home and have, like cheap, healthy lunch at home. And as soon as that scene started, I knew what was going to happen. I looked at Noosk and she looked at me and said, I need a cheeseburger. so that was just incredible. But, okay, so you might have had... Because I said to Noosk afterwards, what did you make of the ending? Did you... Because there is a scene where she takes a big bite of the hamburger. Right at the end, she's watching the whole thing go up in flames.
There's a moment.
I think she looks a little dizzy for a minute. And I'm like...
There's a deliberate...
Yes.
What I thought was a deliberate pause. And I assume this is meant to be left up to us as to, is it poison? Does she get away?
Yeah.
What's going on? I've since read that Mylod has said, "Oh no, she gets away."
Yeah, right. Well, that was Noosk's immediate read. Noosk was like, "No, not at all." And I was like, "I'm sure she looked dizzy for a minute there," and I think that we're meant to question.
Yeah, I think he's put that in deliberately to make you sort of go, "Oh," but the intention is yes. Apparently, she did get away. But I'm glad I wasn't the only one that sort of picked up on that because
me too. I'm really
immediately it lingers just a second too long almost.
See, and I wonder if
it's the bite.
I wonder if it's that people like you and I are much more accustomed to this style of film, so we notice those little things because we're more used to kind of these psychological horror type films,
and it is very hard to try and view things through a less jaded eye.
Well, we're very cynical.
So I don't know if I mean, you would have seen James Wan's *Malignant*.
I haven't yet. No, I haven't got to it yet.
It's well made. It's fun.
Yeah.
I came out of that, and I won't spoil anything, but I came out of it thinking, that wasn't much. Nothing surprised me. I knew exactly what was going to happen from the moment it started to the moment it finished. There were no surprises. And then I'm reading all his reviews going, oh my God, my head, boom, mind blown. And I'm like, I've got to remember, I'm not like the average person. I've seen that many horror movies and psychological thrillers.
Yep.
There's only a finite number of plot beats that in the world that you can have. And I've seen most of them in something. So my mind is racing as I'm watching these things going, oh, well, that's possibly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's the case to a point with something like this as well.
Yeah.
Where it may be reading something into it that isn't there just because we've seen so many things where something would have been there.
Yeah. And I'm glad actually that he's come out and said, no, she gets away, because I do think that is a better ending to the film.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think that makes sense with the whole themes.
It kind of undermines his entire sort of admittedly twisted, but his sort of moral stance on all these things. He has a reason for everything he's doing, even if he is a bit psychotic and sociopathic. There is a reason he's punishing these people for what he sees as moral shortcomings. Yeah. And she doesn't have them. He respects the fact that regardless of the fact that
she actually just loves
service
food.
Industry, she's in a service industry, and he respects her. And I love that conversation they had where he says, do you like what you do? Yeah. And she says, I used to. Yeah. I think that's where the rapport between them started, because he's very much the same. Yeah. His love of his cooking is gone.
I think even more than that, what makes that ending work for me is that, unlike the rest of them, she genuinely actually just enjoys eating. Even something as simple as a cheeseburger, it's satisfying to her. She loves it. And I think for me, that's where thematically this film really sings, is that it's almost like an allegory for working in any field of art, where what's happened to him is, and he says
he's doing art for art's sake. He's not creating because of love.
But he's reached a point where he's become such an esteemed artist of food that he has outpriced himself, and now he can only provide art for these super rich people who don't even appreciate it as much as someone who just wants a cheeseburger.
Exactly.
And I think it's such a great allegory. Like, you could watch this just thinking about any kind of art industry, like as if the kitchen is a group of visual effects artists working on a big budget feature that everyone's just going to shit on anyway. And it's just, that to me is where the genius of this film really is in that reading. I loved this movie so much.
When he comes out with the bread course that has no bread.
Oh my God, that made me laugh out. Oh, I was laughing out loud at least once every couple of minutes in this film, which doesn't happen to me in most straight comedies.
No, I think it's easy to sort of focus on Fiennes and Taylor-Joy because they are kind of the leads.
Yeah.
Nicholas Hoult is fucking fantastic in this.
Yes.
He's so funny.
Yeah.
And always quiet. It's really restrained.
Yeah.
It's a lot of his funniest stuff is just in facial expressions. When he thinks
Definitely.
that, Chef might not like him. Did he see
mad at me?
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just hilarious stuff.
And the funniest scenes too are when horrific things are happening, like when the guy gets his finger cut off, and everyone around the restaurant is like, "Holy shit, what just happened?" Because that's kind of the first over-the-top moment where they're like, "Okay, something here is really wrong." And Margot is looking at him, and he's just digging into his food. He is so unfazed by it. And that reveal later on that he is the one person who knew what was going to happen tonight. He signed up for it willingly and brought a date without telling her. It just makes complete sense that he is just that kind of person who just wanted the experience of it. Like
so intensely fanboying over this chef.
Yeah.
And is prepared to pay the ultimate price just to be in the same room as him for one night.
Yeah. So how are you scoring the menu out of 10?
I was around an 8.5. I think I'm actually going to go to a 9 though.
Yes.
I do want to get to this again in the cinemas because I think it is beautifully shot.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
The setup of the island, the shots of the food, of the cooking, everything it's just beautiful to look at. And as we said, I think it's one of the best scripts I've seen in ages. I'm not at all surprised that these guys are The Onion and Seth Meyers and all that sort of stuff because it's so sharp.
Yeah. I'm a 9 out of 10, but very similar to you. I could see bumping this up to a 10 on future viewings. The only reason I currently have it as a 9 is because I just can't quite put it at the same level as Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, so I think this is a much better film than that.
Yeah, right. For me, that's still easily the film of the year, and I can't see anything topping it before the end of the year for me.
Oh, if the editors on this film had been on that and shaved off about half an hour, maybe.
I've heard that criticism, Yeah, I don't know. I kind of understand that, but no, I can't. For me, that is a perfect film. But I loved this one, and I could easily see myself bumping it up on a future view. I'm
really keen to see what these guys do next, because I'm assuming that Mark Mylod and the writers, Seth Reiss and Will Tracy, met because they all came off Succession most recently, I think, which you've watched, I haven't.
I love Succession, and it's very funny, actually. One of the douchebag businessmen in this plays a douchebag businessman in Succession, so I couldn't help but feel that this was like in the same universe, which just made me chuckle even more.
But yeah, I'm assuming that they're mates and they sort of percolated this together.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping they're going to do more stuff together.
Oh, it makes sense, and I can't wait to see more, because you really should watch Succession if you enjoyed this, because
I'll get to it.
It's a very similar vein.
List.
It's a very similar vein to this, where the drama and the comedy is just balanced better than anything I've ever seen before. And I'm a big fan of a dramedy. Like, dramedy is probably my core genre that I just love. And Succession does it better than anything I've ever seen, where the dramatic moments hit you and the comedic moments make you laugh your ass off, and they can happen in the same scene. It's genius.
I've got a lot of time for this Mark Mylod guy, who I think it's his first feature. He's come out of TV.
Yeah.
But I had a quick scan through to sort of see what else he's done, because I thought this film was so well put together. And it makes sense that this is so good as a horror comedy, because he's done some of the funniest TV I've ever seen. I don't know if you ever watched The Fast Show.
No.
British sketch show, just pre-Little Britain, I think, but in a similar vein. And it is one of the funniest sketch shows I've ever seen in my life. And then obviously he's done Succession and Game of Thrones and stuff, so he can do drama, he can do action, he can do violence with sort of equal aplomb. So I think if he stays in features, there's potentially some really good stuff to come from this guy.
Yeah, this I cannot recommend this enough to people. This is definitely going to crack my top 5 of the year. I can't see anything else coming out in the next several weeks that will drop this.
Although, did you get a trailer for Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre?
Oh my God, are they showing trailers for that again? That was supposed to come out in April.
Ah.
Is that Jason Statham, yes?
Yeah, it's the new Guy Ritchie. It's Jason Statham or Aubrey Plaza.
I wonder when that's... Because that was supposed to come out in April and then it just disappeared. No mention of it being postponed, no anything. Trailers just disappeared.
It looked... I haven't really liked a Guy Ritchie in a long time.
But when he's on,
he's done some absolute shite.
That's true.
But this looks like...
Yeah.
Although, I tell her right, what was it called? The Gentleman. I did really like.
Okay, I can see but I'm a big Aubrey Plaza fan. Anything she's in, I'm excited for it.
Her wielding a gun, that alone I'm in. But her, Statham, Carrie Elways, so you're there twice now.
Well, yes, that's right. You know about my love for Elways.
Hugh Grant, Josh Hartnett, Eddie Marzan. It looks so funny, and the action looks great. I'm 100% sold on this, and I think it's going to be the best thing he's done in years.
Well, when that comes out, we'll definitely do an episode on it, because I did have it on the schedule in April, and then it just...
See if we can get Wayne on and he can have a big wank over how good Guy Ritchie is.
Let's do that. Let's try and do that. That'd be fun. I'm all here for Wayne coming on. Well, thank you so much for joining me. This has been awesome to chat about these two films. As I said, I was going to go fortnightly. I don't know. This has been fun. Maybe we'll be back next week.
We'll do it every day. We'll do a daily show.
But we've got some fun things in the work. You came up with the idea of doing our top Christmas movies, which I think is going to be really fun. I've spoken to Topher about hopefully coming on for Violent Night with David Harbour, so we'll see if that happens. But yeah, let's see where this crazy ride takes us, mate.
100%.
I'm glad to have you here. This is good. And thank you, dear listeners, for joining us. This has been tremendous. I love each and every one of you.
You're all beautiful, beautiful people.
In the meantime, if you want to get in touch with us, you can do that at wewatchedathing.com or wewatchedathing@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all under the handle at wewatchedathing. If you want to help support the show, you can do that at patreon.com/wewatchedathing, which you should cancel your Patreon for now, David. And we'll catch you next week.
Go fucking watch the menu.